waiting, but we're going to begin in a few moments if you just give us a bit more time. Right now? The Generations English Language Poetry. Okay, I would request you to please switch off your mobile phones or put them in silence mode. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the discussion. We would appreciate if complete silence is observed while the session is in progress. And since this is poetry, I would like to request you to please respect while the poets are reading out their verses. Salman Tarik Kureshi is an English language poet, writer and columnist. His poems have appeared in anthologies such as Pieces of Eight, Legacy of the Indus, The Blue Wind, Dragonfly in the Sun, an anthology, Journal of Postcolonial Writing, and a solo volume, Landscapes of the Mind. Some of his poems and short stories have been published in the annual Pakistan Journal of Literature. As a columnist, he writes on socio-political topics in the Weekly, the Friday Times, and the dailies Dawn and Daily Times. Please welcome him.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. We are starting 30. Let's get going now. So we'll try to get straight to the poetry. Just by way of introducing the session, very briefly, it's called Voices Across the Generations because we have poets with us today in our lineup who are very young, and of course at the extreme there are much older people like myself, plus a lot in between. So it is Voices Across the Generations. Some much younger people, some much older people, and in between. The sequence we will follow is not a junior to senior sequence. I don't know, because I don't know what is superior, the skill and competence of experience or the vigor and vitality of youth, the freshness of youth. There's no superiority either way. Both are the same in my book. So let us start. So it's a random sequence of following, some older, some younger, all together. There is in our lineup today preponderance, I think, of lady poets. Now, why lady poets? I don't know. Why are there more lady poets than gent poets writing English? I don't know. They say that some people think that lady poets are more sensitive and more inward and in their poetry and reflective, while gent poets are more observant, observation, poetry of observation, more outgoing. I don't think any such generalization is possible. We're starting with a lady poet who will completely defy what we're talking about, inwardness. Our first poet for the evening is a British poet. Salena Godden is a British poet of Jamaican and Irish heritage. She's young but well known in England. She's published a number of volumes of verse. She is very much into the contemporary style of performance poetry, poetry of the spoken word. Because she's also worked on movies, making movies. She has also written a novel just published called Mrs. Death, as the title of her novel. We have her here courtesy of the British Council, and it will be on video, which we'll just show. So let me introduce Salena Godden. Can we have that video of Salena Godden, please?
Yes, mother's milk. I dream I lie outside.
There are, I believe, 2 poems on this video. Please, can we have the video? To my friends backstage there, I am not seeing any video yet.
Forever, like time,
and waves of love.
we name the child
Breath
and heart
love.
and wolf.
A love
It is
I have
wolf
heard other women say,
running towards us
a
without
love
stretched
mothers
arms.
boast about.
I see wolf now running towards us, alive and spirit and free.
As if it is
I jolt upright and wake up to see the sun rising, the morning bright and vivid, as the love I felt in my dream, the love I still feel now as I write this.
Milky light. And because this is just a dream, the baby is laughing, and then talking, and then walking towards me and my time. It is a lovely thing, alive and beautiful. Curly hair, big grey eyes, just like yours, my love, forever like time. We name the child Breath and Heart and Wolf. It is Wolf, running towards us with outstretched arms. I see Wolf now running towards us, alive and spirit and free. I jolt upright and wake up to see the sun rising, the morning bright and vivid, as the love I felt in my dream, the love I still feel now as I write this. In my dream, I felt love, a love death could never break, a love for you, my love, my love, my love for you, and this world, this day, and this time, this short time we share The love I felt in my dream was so true this morning. I forgive my mistakes, my accidents and losses, the things that could never be. This morning, for once, all is quiet inside me. There is love. As I write this, it is banging in my heart and hurting in my chest. Pessimism is for lightweights. Think of those that marched this road before, and those that will march here in years to come. The road in shadow, the road in sun, the road before us, and the road all done. History is watching us, and what will we become? This road is all flags and milestones, immigrant blood and sweat and tears built this city, built this country, made this road last all these years. And those not permitted to vote, and those that are still fighting to speak with a boot stamping on their throat. There is a power and strength in optimism, to have faith and to stay true to you. Because if you can look in the mirror and have belief and promise you will share wonder in living things, beauty, dreams, books, art, love your neighbour and be kind and have an open heart, well then you're already winning at living. You speak up, you show up and you stand tall. It's silence that is complicit, it's apathy that hurts us all. Pessimism is for lightweights. There is no straight white line. It's the bumps and the curves and the obstacles that make this road yours and mine. Pessimism is for lightweights. This road was never easy or straight. And living is all about living alive and lively. And love will conquer hate. Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask a very young poet who will have a tough time coming after that. It's Alyana Khan. Alyana, if you please come up. Alyana is a student at Karachi Grammar School, and she will now present two of her poems.
Hello. Okay. So the first poem I'll be reciting is Beliefs. Our beliefs, they linger on jagged rooftops and worn-out skies. We loathe the acrid stench of burnt garbage and rotting lies. We long for days that would provide us an escape, for this to be no longer. Our beliefs were stubborn. They did not carry through miles. We did not care that they did not belong. So we left them in the cracks of the broken tiles of Mama's kitchen. Youthful faces glow with the glory of escape. Expectations farther in the clouds in their heads. But as time etched onto their skin, they wrote, we do not want perfect green lawns and city sights. We do not want foreign faces and white lies. We want dead grass to crunch against our souls, open smoggy skies and faces we call home. This is the truth of what we want. And now on to my second poem, which is probably one of the first poems I've ever written, but one of my favorite poems. This is a realm of fairy tale bliss and Cupid's kiss, where stars descend and songs never end, where the essence of youth is blind to finality, and beliefs that conquer reality. But this realm is sicker than it is sweet, for Cupid's lips are stained with poison, and his eyes are wild with treason, cries are not songs or wails of defeat that scratch my mind incessantly on repeat. The sky is rouged, murder on purity and purity on murder. This realm is broken, this realm is tainted, this realm is wounded, this realm is bleeding, this realm is not worth saving. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyana. I'll next ask Sateah Afreedi. Sateah is a poet. She's recently published a book last year to the middle of the COVID lockdowns that it appeared. Otherwise, I would have been there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me.
I have 3 poems to recite. The first one is Untitled, number 48. He sits on his throne with all his pride. The stones beneath him crack and crumble. His court, it's painted red. And all his subjects, they're dead. There are no knights to serve him. They were all killed in pointless wars. There are no advisors to guide him. The king, he executed them all. He sits on his throne, alone in his castle. No queen by his side, no heirs next in line. What a glorious king he thinks he is. A kingdom crumbling at his feet he doesn't see. At least no one dares utter any words that disagree. Thank you. Second one is called Wonderland. He loves it. He loves it when you worry. He loves it even more when you're upset. He loves to be the reason you smile. He loves the way you hold his hand. He can't wait to confuse you. He wants to be cherished and loved. Can't wait for you to try and understand. He knows how hard you'll try to figure him out. He drives you mad, completely crazy and loony, trapping you in your own paths of twisted crossroads of games and plays. He asks you questions to which he knows. He knows you don't have any answers. He talks in riddles until he knows you can't win. His smile, it's always there, never faltering and never failing. He leads you deeper into the madness and you follow him blindly. Tea times that last forever and unbirthday celebrations all around. Secret keeping red queens and, look here, another mad one you found. Cats that smile, twins that confuse. It's a place you've been here before. You're sure of it, but you can't place it at all. It's a tugging feeling right at the back of your mind you can't quite place. All you know is that everything and everyone grows curiouser and curiouser each day. You fall down rabbit holes and you're late to parties you were never invited to. Since when did this become your reality? Since when were your marbles not with you? He tells you to pick a path, but you simply cannot choose. He pulls you by the hand and deeper into the madness you go. You blink and it's all gone, your hand still in his. And that sound, that ticking sound that's beating with your heart, you try to find the source, but it seems like an impossible take. You try to remember the Red Queen's screams, but it's a distant echo only. There's no more white rabbits around, no more watches in their hands. Was it really just a dream, or have you finally gone mad? Thank you. Sorry, what'd you say? And the last one, Sometimes She Visits Twice. This was written about 10 to 13 years ago, right after my grandparents' death. So this is a conversation with death after their passing. It wasn't even windy when the cold settled in my bones. It wasn't even cold when my heart turned to ice. There was no ice on the streets when the fires went out, and even the sun The sun forgot how to burn for those few nights. Death, it comes for all, saints and sinners alike. She is just and swift and always right. But when you're young and your eyes bleed dry, you question her again and again and again until she too feels your sadness and hears your cries. With her skith hanging low and her head held high, you dare not meet her eyes, for you fear your own demise. Your heart stutters and skips as fear builds and builds and builds and builds. She doesn't offer you her hand, for her touch is deathly and your time isn't here yet. She tells you about a time when all of us were immortals and she didn't live. She tells you about a time when they all lost hope and didn't love at all, for a beginning without an end has no meaning at all. You listen quietly, your eyes too dry for tears, so she offers you a smile instead. Tears won't bring them back, my love, she says softly. They're too far for your touch, too far for your prayers, and too far for your love. You knew it already, but her words still feel untrue and unreal. Now what, you ask, through the pain and the sorrow and the hurt? So death, she offers you another smile and says, now you live and love. Live until you can't, love until your heart gives out, and be here, right here, until I come for you. I'll take you back when it's your time, but if you call before, remember one thing, I will not be so kind. Thank you.
Our next poet, I am going to ask, well, he has been a poet who has written that's not his primary vocation as a poet. He has been quietly writing on the side. Jeeva Haroun, I will request next. Jeeva, can somebody from the volunteers please help Mr. Haroun? He has a problem with his eyesight. Okay. So Mr. Haroun Jeeva is born in Malaysia and now lives in Karachi. He is a barrister, a lawyer by profession, and he is married to a significant poet also, Shireen Haroun, and has been writing quietly on the side. This is the first time he's going to recite at KLF.
Thank you.
Jeeva Haroun.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Very good. My first poem is called Squares. In it, I try and explore the contours between myth and reality. Central to this poem is the concept of the Greek immortal who sacrificed himself to provide fire to man. The poem goes like this. Talons unfurl, wings dip, the eagle swoops, eyes expectant, alert. Tiny cubes of meat wait, summer strawberries on the wind. A sacrifice, a sacrifice, an appeasement to silent gods, slaked for centuries, blood begetting blood. Sorry, what's the next one? Blood begetting blood. Sorry, can somebody give me a prompt? हाँ? क्या?
Reading के बाद ऐसे bedding. D Sherek. D Sherek, sir.
Huh?
D and THE, sir. SHRI.
Ah, okay. The shriek lifts, moves away, echoes and dies. Prometheus lies chained in the twilight, regenerating liver. Until the next sunrise dispels ruby red rays over adjoining rooftops. Somewhere in the distance, an eagle draws closer. Thank you. My second poem is called Dream Merchant. The subject matter is obvious, but it also takes into account the sacking of Persepolis, which was the pride of the Persians. The locked door opens warily. Dust clouds rise as we follow through. In an anteroom, the finer merchandise waits. A switch is thrown, and spotlights illuminate vertically to the bare floor. One thud echoes another as carpets are thrown out. Geometric designs, birds, flowers, alternate. Color pervades an empty canvas. Purple coalesces with brown, red seeps into burgundy. Each carpet recounts its ancestry, coming alive in a conjurer's trick. Alexander the Great strides in, the conqueror's arrogance barely concealed. With a sneer, he puts torch to pile. Persepolis burns. Double knots unravel to reveal grey ash. Thank you. My third poem is called Adrift. On the surface, it deals with the subject of continental drift and something a little more topical and much else. They say there was a time when the oceans were one, and so the lands, and then they parted. Africa moved away from Brazil, and Gondwana was gone, and again Pangaea. Even the pygmy hominid from Flores heard the thumbnail beat of time. Now, even the calls to prayer drift from one lane to another. Is it our clocks which no longer tell the same time? As meters have gone remote and digital, even time is relative to the observer's eye. Thank you. My fourth poem is called Penance. It was written on the 17th of February and explores the timeless myth of Radha waiting and never quite getting Krishna. Okay? As stars waned, she kept vigil by the river's edge, watching. Time pass, reduce to moments, memories, thoughts refreshed, hands held, words gift, a warm embrace, but sleep never came. Restive, she fretted. Perhaps he was distracted by a voice familiar, a glance shared, elsewhere, had forgotten. His words so simply lost as if they never were. Parched, pining in the silence, eyes brim as soft tears fell. Day dawns, doubts submerge resolve. Raza retraces her steps. Bound beyond time, they will always be one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeeva. Next, I'm going to ask Fatima Ijaz. Fatima is a young poet. She has been at KLF before. Fatima is educated in the US, Canada, and Pakistan. She, I discovered recently, has also studied drama, and she has also studied art. She studies art with my wife, actually. I found that by mistake, by accident. Fatima's book recently appeared, which you will read from. Thank you.
Thank you, Salman. My first poem is called Dead Memories 5. There was a murder last night. I killed the first look of the dawn. So we succumbed to darkness again. Sobriety that comes of a certain cut, crimson ties and all. The second one is Crow Memories 7. The visitation of a black crow on the ebony brow hovering above, what has it come to say to me? It can be kissing distance away from my hand and yet dark sparkle near the lunatic moon. It can sing, but not sing. It can laugh like a banshee, but digress siren-like into the sea. Why do its black eyes resemble newspapers? The third one is Where I Grew Up, on insomniac streets, by water memory, leaning against the sun, singing the color of leaf burns, stuttering. In an obscure house, the heart of which was ghost, the cobweb mirror articulated stunted desire, and the hungry staircase ran into an unfinished upstairs. I grew up in the skeleton of grief. Carpenter ants had chewed off the skin, and witch-infested nests reached out from the windows. It's a miracle my sorrow kept growing in the house where everything was to die. The choking wind chimes serving as mementos, the dancing tears appearing as flickering bulbs. Yesterday, I opened the box of fatigue and spelt out the way I grew taller by your name. The next one is called Answers. Have you ever been present at the sighting of madness in its raw? Did it confuse you or leave you drenched sane? Did you cast a stone or dry a stray tear? Did you ever feel compelled to laugh at the antics of split rhymes? Or did you rather turn as if numb and run the other way like mad? Do you prefer sociability, respectability still? Or has it finally become like a Freudian cage which appears as glitter bars when you shop at grocery stores? Do you erode in the wind? Or does it cause you to calmly shut the door and continue to paint your nails an alternate red and blue? In all this time, have you ever been hungry for blue moon disk fashion summoning? Have you wanted it raw? Do you recall rude summers the way a canary stumbles in a washed painting? Where have you been hibernating? Scared of the wintry spell-casting moon? Are you afraid it will come from the sky, walk into your room as if it owned that cashmere rug? Or do you follow the magic staircase that leads nowhere? And the last one is often, seldom. My familiar, my ghost, how often I've looked for you on abandoned streets, in deserted cafes, in the lost lingering of the moon, in open-hearted conversations, in childish mannerism, and how seldom I have found you, though they've resembled you. How seldom have they been you? Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. Our next poet this evening is also a young poet, a young voice. Let me ask, Minaa Shahzad, where is she? Minaa is also a student at Cedar College in Karachi. Where is she? Oh, here you go.
Hello. So this poem is about the idea.
No, it's going to the other street. Oh.
The idea that we aren't, like, our personalities are not made up of ourselves, but rather we are a collection of pieces that we pick up from our loved ones, people that we meet in our life. So, yeah. Nothing remains in the mirror anymore. Neither me nor my reflection. Pieces, pieces, pieces only. The sun glares through the glass, glares into my soul, into the pieces, into me. There is nothing there, nothing that belongs to me. She smiles at me in hearts. She laughs with me in moonshine. She is part of my soul. I hear others, words they have said, memories they have made, lives they have lived, to me, with me, for me. It all glows in union, the warmth of belonging, of being. They have loved me in moments fleeting and more. She has my hearts in moments cold and warm. I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. I am made of them. I am pieces of them. I am them. There is no mirror, nothing to be empty in. There was always a window, a stained glass window with colorful pieces. Pieces of me, pieces of them. It is lovely when light falls through. Thank you.
Thank you, Minaa. This was very nice. Okay, is Peerzada Salman here? I don't see him. Is Peerzada Salman here? No. Okay, he can come back. He'll join us later. Next, I'm going to ask, let's call it a more recognized voice, a more mature voice, that of Moeen Faruqi. Moeen has two claims to fame. Poetry, of course, is the one that he is going to exhibit now. More than that, he is one of Pakistan's best-known artists. And let me call him to the stage and welcome Moeen Faruqi.
My first poem is called Soliloquy. Unraveling in autumn wind, Amma's stories fall like leaves. Letters she never mailed, faded in a blue trunk. We pieced her lives together for a sepia collage of smiling faces and ancient conversations. Once upon a time, this story was never told. Unborn, it circulates between our ears. Her loves, her unfinished dreams, and the long lost in her family who murmur from crevices in walls. Beneath the grass in the garden, we buried the pot she brought with her. It carried all her journeys, the sense of migration, her dolls and dishes of childhood, her stars, resplendent in a personal sky, cold and unfeeling on a winter night. This one is called April Meeting. The terror of a radiant face, so ordinary, it's beautiful. It creates and with each moment reignites, and a body golden and bare, lustrous in imperfection. Let us embrace by the lamp's glow and drink the light ourselves. Burning with the tongue's unusual language, we are devoid of sleep tonight. Come, we have conquered night. We have made darkness as white as our own lids, closing and opening the lips as if drowning. Bronze legs, silver hair like melted snow, arms clasping the one who lives and moves and gives life. And this last poem is called...
That's lovely.
Oh, thank you. This last poem is called Return to the Beach. All day rain from the heavens, the sea white and frothy. The moist wind brought distant breaths, and then through the clouds the light broke, vast and bright and gentle, still cooled by rain suspended in air. The waves brought music in roars, this one louder than the other, and grew as the white heads of waves became larger. With each swell the sea was born again. The sand shone wet and yellow, a glistening slice of earth fading into sea. Children ran in the water, their souls white as the fresh-born sun. Seashells rolled onto the white beach, their mouths open for raindrops. Thank you.
Thank you, Moeen. Can I now request Peerzada Salman? I think he's here. Salman is a bilingual poet. He writes in both English and Urdu. He has published books both of English poetry and of Urdu poetry. He is a journalist by profession and writes for the Daily Dawn. Salman.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello. Sorry, I'm a little late. Actually, I was trying to file my story for Dawn. Can you guys hear me? Huh? Okay. The first one is called In the End. In the end, it's death and you, and 21 grams of poetry. Heaviness and feathery touch, oxymoron simplified. You. You are two poems and one memory, pain threaded through loops of love. Words. There are words and then there are words. Toxic, gaslight, passive-aggressive. There are words and then there are words. I love you, but I'm not this and that. There are words and then there are words. Infidelity, cheating, orgasm. There are words and then there are words. Why do you look so pale? Let me order milkshake for you. There are words and then there are words. Polar opposites, chalk and cheese, literature and parties. There are words and then there are words. Why do you look so pale? Let's get out. You need fresh air. Let's go out. You need fresh air. There are words and then there are words. There are birds, and then there are birds, doves and vultures, thrushes and falcons. Duplicity. I want to watch a movie with you and balk at your choice. I want to read Shakespeare to you and laugh when I draw a blank. I want to dance with you to a Jackson 5 song and mock you for having 2 left feet. I want to hold your dainty hand and look the other way. I need you. I want you not. The last one is called Half-Lit Moon. I see the moon half-lit. Where's my ashtray? Will you stub the moon for me? Will you be me? Thank you.
Thank you, Salman. Right, we have now I'll ask Zarmina Raza. Zarmina is a teacher of English. She teaches at Cedar College and other institutions. She teaches poetry and she writes it. And we're going to hear some of her poems now.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Thank you. My first poem is called Comfortable Spaces. The world has shrunk to the 4 walls of my home, an old shirt, suddenly tight. Beloved, worn, not quite right, not ready to be left behind. Even if I refuse to see, to believe, to admit that it's past time, just not yet, not yet, not yet. Yet, in that discomforting comfortableness, I've become intimate with the edges of my home, the balcony and its views, the rows of houses, this way and that, the narrow streets that bisect just there, the far reaches of the roof, its slopes, cracks, and crumbling paint, the clarity of the night sky, the crispness of the air and moon, the slight nips on cooler evenings, the glaring eye on simmering noons, the path the sun takes as it slowly sinks, the golden light until it fades to mere shadows, the laughter and the games, sword fights and plush toy dogs, the lone silence, the hush that shadows the laughter, the light, the company, and the comfort of home. Thank you. My second poem, he was basking in the early morning light, sprawled across the dirt without a care in the world. A fly flitted across lips that didn't even twitch. A few flies hovered near his neck and hind legs, but he didn't stir. Looking more carefully, one notices the belly is still. Is it dead? Oh, poor thing. A few months ago, another had lain there, 3 feet to the left, dead, for a while. 2 weeks, 3, I cannot quite recall, but it lay there, dead for quite a while. Dead seems inaccurate. Skin and flesh chewed in some places, decomposed in others. It had decayed over days. It had rotted over time. On exhibit for weeks, no dog went near it, nor man. After it perished, while it was decaying, I parked my white car next to the blackening carcass. For 2 whole weeks, I did my part. I told someone to call KMC to haul it away. They didn't, so it lingered. It lay there in the sun, quite dead, quietly decomposing. Once, a black truck parked over it. High up, behind the wheel, the windshield, the eye must have missed the corpse, but the 4 wheels certainly made an impression. A chewed, rotted dead dog, now slightly flatter, more dusty, pressed hard into the ground, tired tread tattooed over its belly. Oh, it was an awful sight. The decaying body, swarming with flies, flattened by decay and tires. Poor thing. I walked past it every day. One Tuesday, it was gone. A few days later, forgotten. This dead thing reminds me of the last one. Poor thing. Hope it didn't suffer. Better tell someone to take care of it. I do hope they're quicker this time round. It's just too awful. People really shouldn't have to look at death and decay. Thank you. And the last one, Forgotten Sounds of Home. The crow's caw lining the wires overhead. Scattered among the caws are the tweets and chirps of birds that have lost their way in a smogless sky, a clearer, quieter air. The fan whirs air, the illusion of a cooling breeze, while the AC quietly exhales air, sometimes cool, sometimes warm. The wall's ice cream cart slowly cycles down the lane, tooting its jingle like the Pied Piper, enticing children to race outside their walls. The fruit and vegetable sellers cry out their wares, the sound so alien, yet reminiscent of times past, a childhood spent in Bath Island, walking to the bridge store for Coke, chili chips, and ice lollies. Far away in the distance, puttering engines, skidding tires, and honking horns, fading away, fading away, fading. Thank you.
Thank you, Zarmina. I'm now going to request Sateah Halai to come up. Sateah, educated in the US and Canada and Pakistan. She has been writing poetry since a young age. She is a very accomplished poet. Okay, let her recite. She has won a number of awards over the years, and it's not writing too much these days. I wish she would write more.
Thank you, Salman. Assalamu alaikum. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. So I'm reading one poem, and it's in 4 parts. So the poem is called Hail, and H-A-I-L. And just 2 things I want to mention about the poem. One is that there is an Urdu couplet towards the end, which is by Iqbal. And the other thing I want to mention is that I wrote this poem about my father, who passed away about a year ago, and his name was Dr. Tufail Ahmed Kureshi. He was a philosophy professor, and he wrote poetry as well, but in Urdu. Hail. 1. Peeled back, the sepals were waxy and surprising. There was no wishing chant of loss to accompany the assembly. They resembled the school drawings I made in Hyderabad. Before each science test, my father would reckon what I knew. Every fruit was once a flower. Is that false or true? He'd ask. But the flower came before the drawing. Is that true or false? I laid out the parts the way a mother lays out a uniform the night before. The collar stiff, socks irregular on the bed. It made an outline of the child. Chalk on tarmac, face and hands rubbed out, something the child himself dreamt up, a portrait without pretense. They gave me my father's socks in the hospital corridor. I looked at them longer than I needed to. I found a red flower. I took it apart. It offered me sympathy. It was not designed to be stitched back together. Temporary, even on the branch, it was a flag. I saw its parts individually. It was part of the vast imagination long before it became part of mine. 2. Rooting around in your garden after your death, did I expect to find you? Of course I didn't, but of course I did. In the hibiscus and the potted aloe vera, exultant this season. In the euphorbia, its crown of thorns. In the speckled moss rose that crept everywhere. Your suffering was quiet. You left in silence. But here in this old man's garden, you grew with fierce love, is a strange gehma gehmi. Like school children, they speak at once, the palm, the bougainvillea, even the office time. That ground cover with yellow flowers and a silly name. There is so much they have to tell me, and so much they want to know. 3. Thus it is, you often said, but thus it ought to be. Index finger of your right hand, a composer's blurred baton. Your last month was a wafer-thin ablution, a fumble of darkness. It was euphorbia, the bald red flower fringed with thorns. The fountain by the lab at Aga Khan that burbles. Dry space between the lines you underlined. Iqbal and Soren Kierkegaard. At 3 p.m., it was some small miracle. Simultaneously, both the voice sonorous of Mehdi Hasan and Sinatra. Your last month was many syllables long, a lesson a long time coming. 4. When all is done, we'll say like giddy, wayward children, we tarried a day or two. हर एक मकाम से आगे मकाम है तेरा, हयात ज़ौक़े सफ़र के सिवा कुछ और नहीं. Did you enjoy the journey? I hope there is hail and snow where you are. I hope they wash you clean. Thank you.
Very moving. Thank you. Shireen Haroun. Shireen is, of course, Jeeva Haroun's wife, and she is one of our better known poets. She is also a lawyer by profession, but she doesn't practice law. She is a homemaker, she teaches English, and she looks after a large number of dogs.
Cats.
So,
And cats.
And her mother, Tarik Kureshi, was, I think, the finest poet who wrote in Pakistan in the English language. And so here's Shireen Haroun.
My first poem was written for our son, and I'll start with it right away. It's called Stone Age. A class project caveman, and you so enthralled, drew, as children do, a portrait. Perhaps age 7, his short life appealed to you, or the stare of that Pliocene Adam going straight across ground, guileless into the sun. But the cave you drew, layer over layer, would have suffocated any dweller, made him retch from that black geometry. Inside, no stick figures clutching spears or daubing pigments by a fire, no human shape at all, only a young, intense green, and even that splotched by tar. Was this the simple ancestor, the brute, traced by your eye? Up close, the shape is not unlike a subway with its reek and mass commuters, intolerable journeys, leaving no imprint. Sorry about the fuddling around. My second poem is called Fugitive. I wonder who lives in that chocolate box with the wisteria wall, floating in wonderland above the city's pall. The wisteria wall is high and green. There's nothing Gothic to be seen except Red King and Queen. While they wear muslin frocks within, innocent as Alice, of the grins, mysterious, vanishing. And when they do sit down to eat, they drape the teapot white and neat, in case the dormouse finds his feet. Enough said of those wisteria lives, we've guessed them high and sweet. Outside, a dismembered man crawls across a street. Thank you. Well, I couldn't leave my daughter out, so this is for her. This is about her. It's called Christmas Eve. The spell that's gripped her now is slowly altering the singer's voice until there's nothing more to say but only song. Singing of something else, all air and blue, that never is and only nowhere now would do. For them, the solemn congregation, half in a daze as little ripples run, until it vanishes. They stir, like those that watched a star must feel it fall. And my last poem is quite an old one. It's called Page Bird. Were you not paper, you should be light as air, already wind-born, the closest thing within that open element. Or if not in flight, in song, the second element that is all your own. Tiring at sundown, returning to the world of nests and leaves and other birds. But you would not be here, an artist's illustration in vivid color, displayed in a picture book, confined to the one page of yourself, where there is neither night nor day, just time, and the same bland landscape, without insight, until the eye loses all feeling and the page.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you. Is Haris Khalique here? I don't see him. Oh, yes, there he is. Yes, there he is. Sorry, I didn't see you, Haris. Haris is a bilingual, trilingual poet. He's a very well-known Urdu poet. He's a very well-known English poet, and he has also written in Punjabi. Published books in all languages. He's written other books also apart from poetry, which are mentioned here. He is also an activist for human rights. He is the General Secretary of the Human Rights Commission in Pakistan. Haris Khalique, he's written a long poem here called Seven Sharif, which he'd like to read out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Salman. This is a long poem, longish rather, not a very long poem, but I'll just read it in one go. And this was written sometime after the bomb blast in 7, but I dedicated this evening to the worshippers martyred in Peshawar today, because these things seems, they never cease to end. So it's titled Seven Sharif. The shrine stretches its arms into the sky. Sun sets late on the dome. Dusk stays in the courtyard. An occasional cloud touches the minarets, seeks guidance for where to burst. Sun keeps the tight, tawny skin of his disciple wet. Globules of sweat spread like carbuncles. When they drop on the sand, they turn into pearls. Poor women, men, hasten, pick them up, store in shanty huts. Between the arcs of her feet and her potter's wheel, a world waits to be born. The cracks in her heels are filled with mud. She dances to the beat of the dhamal. The mud hardens, turns grey. Thick metal anklets banging against each other. When he walks, he sells threads, talismans for feeble wrists, slender collarbones. Deep eyes dream of a past. He's among them. Scarred faces, charred souls, tramp and knave, seeking forgiveness, gathering round the funnel, hanging high from a post at the tomb. Someone brings water from the pond, passes it through the funnel. Drunk from the hollows of hands, the crooked lines of his palms are straightened, sore mounts softened. She herds a goat, pulling at the limp ear to the entrance of the shrine. She collects tassels, adorns the goat, a braid with bells for herself. Her lower jaw is wider, molars thinner, a smell of urine. Her scene inhuman, a young bride, she miscarried. The midwife punctured her, made fistulas. After years, a doctor camped near the village. She escaped, content with the smells, sharpened by heat of summer. The toes are twisted, legs roped, neck has green veins bursting out, teeth pale and chipped, nose receding. Boys tell her she's ugly. She knows. She wants to be held by the waist, told she's fine. She wants to be entered, soul touched. She comes to the shrine where all become the same. walloping laughter scares them. On his way to the shrine in a bus with broken windows, dust, gravel, thicken his beard. Between catnaps on the highway, he thinks of the indignities. Soothsaying brings him food, telling fortunes, interpreting omens, pretending to summon spirits of the dead, condemned like necromancers, wizards, sits in a corner, reads hymns from the Psalms, holds on to his cross. He enters the shrine, limping on front legs, leaves, a stallion with an arched neck, cross shining through his mane. Bare thighs, legs looped, hiding jewels, he shudders, shrugs off the image, the girl he met in London. Other images fill the space. Camel toe of the neighbor's wife, sweeping the corridors. Wail tale of a friend's sister, stooping over her desk to read, write. The shrine gives solace. He sobs. Young women arouse new desires. He holds the railing. Love knocks. She lives far. On the 14th night of the moon, comes to the shrine, watches a son beat the drum in the twilight. With each beat, the wind turns to fire. She smiles at memories. Cranky, speckled mother-in-law lashed her each morning, cactus tongue. My son gifted wasted seed in a barren tract of land. Red bandana, black shirt, bold stains of sweat, round armpits, chest, before his left eye was gouged out by the dog of the feudal. He went to school, but to no end. An uncle left him at the shrine when mother, father, cattle were carried away by waves of the Indus. The only lines he can read: I am the follower of the brave lion, a free man choosing to be a slave, devotee of the rightly chosen, Ali. It is thought he memorized these lines. He knows he can read. And the last part is, when the bomb rips through, rows of God-forsaken columns on which the dome of the tomb rests, observe a moment of silence. Yet the dancers return, chanting names of the 12 infallible men, thumping the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Haris.
Thank you.
Well, that is our selection for today, or tonight. Except before closing, I'll take a little advantage of the audience and read a short poem of my own. It's a recent one. It's called Dancer. With a rustle of clothing and the tentative initial tinkling of ankle bells, the dancer steps out onto the rooftop. There is a sweeping flourish of backward curving fingers. Her foot arches forward, toes pressed down on cold concrete. Her heel descends, ta, tikata. She pirouettes, her hands as swans floating above her head, then curtsies with a supple bend of her knee, her palm raised before her face in salutation. She dances alone, her audience, the blank windows of buildings around, and the moon just past the full. Na ten ten na ten ten na. Her feet follow the rhythms she generates within herself, converting a turn into a series of small leaps. She is off across the rooftop between silent TV antennae and heaps of broken bric-a-brac and around the base of the looming water tower. She dances the many stories of her life, her art, becoming a forsaken forest maiden by a lotus pond, a playful kitten prancing in a shaft of moonlight. She is a gazelle that springs over meadow grasses, a princess adorning herself with necklaces, rings. Sculptress of space, she grasps skeins of nighttime darkness and molds them, limbs and gesturing hands shaping fitful changing forms. She pirouettes again, spins, keeps spinning, spinning. Her foot slaps are sharp staccato from the rooftop. The pealing of her ankle bells crescendos to a jangling thunder. Na din din na, na din din na. Her hands rotate the sky above her, the moon and the dim eclipse stars. Her feet rotate a planet. Ta tika tika tai, ta spinning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I know we started late and we've gone later still. But I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thank you. For the few technical glitches, I offer apologies.